Alrighty. Welcome everybody to She's of Love. I will be looking down at my phone as I make the intro because I want to make sure that we are
You you
broadcasting.
you can do the intro, Juliet, and I'll look.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, in that case, I'll just do the intro.
yeah,
Hello everybody and welcome to She's of Love. This
it's all
week
good.
we have Anne-Marie on the show. Now I'm always so intrigued as to where our conversations are going to go with you because every single time you come on, we go to all these magical
Mm.
places and I think really healing places as well. Today's topic is connecting through conversation. And
Yeah,
I guess the part that speaks to me the most, I guess, what came to me when I first saw that this was going to be the topic today was connecting through story almost. Because a lot of the time when we converse, we're sharing stories of some kind. And I think a big message that's coming to me from the universe at the moment is the power of like storytelling,
yeah,
um, and even just telling speaking your pain or your worry to someone you trust. That's another major thing of like releasing releasing the trauma in a sense in a space that is healing and with trusted people. I mean, there is so many places that this correlates to all of our in all of our lives. So I'll hand the mic over to you, Emery, and I just invite you to take this wherever you go and what kind of calls to you about this topic.
Thank you, Julia, and thank you, Claudia, for having me. Um, I didn't really know where what topic to cover, and I haven't really thought about it because I've had a busy weekend last weekend, and this week has felt like catch up time. And being the end of month at work, it was quite a busy week. So I haven't thought about it, but I suppose I live my life by connecting through conversation. So it comes naturally. So I thought, oh, I don't really need to overthink it. Whatever comes will
you know,
come.
Anne Marie, you know what I'm interested in to know with you actually is you and I have had many, many conversations,
We have.
and one of the interesting things that you've told me actually about your past jobs is that you would go into companies and workplaces and you
Yeah.
would talk to the people right from the top, the
Yeah.
managers and the bosses, right down to the cleaners and the janitors and the people in the lower parts of that company hierarchy to get a full view of the problems that you were trying to fix or just to get a rounded um, point of view from everyone so that you
Yeah.
could create solutions for their problems. And
Hmm.
I always thought when you were telling me that that was such because not a lot of people do that. Not a lot of people are interested or think that those people who are sweeping the floors or taking the bins out would have much information to share or something meaningful to contribute. But you
Yeah.
did. You were like, those people can give me insight that the people who are managing the company can't give me.
Exactly.
And yeah, and
Exactly.
I was really interested to know how you would piece that together, like, because the really
Mm.
Hmm.
that's connection through conversation on a larger scale, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So,
could you give us a little bit of insight into that?
I used to be a management consultant. I'm not really doing much of that now. Um, so when I was really intensely into management consultant, I was a business analyst. So I would get flown onto like do fly in, fly out, and I'd get flown onto a mine site or some utility site, usually heavy industry, and I would do a business analysis. And part of that was I would do an analysis of like the culture and the behaviors. And so I would talk to everyone in the organization, and like you said, from the CEO down to the lowest person, considered the lowest person in the hierarchy. And I would get just an insight from everyone. But it was always the managers were like, oh, don't worry about interviewing them, and discourage me from doing it. And I suppose that kind of, for me, went, hang on, maybe they've got something to say and they don't want it revealed. So I would talk to everyone. I would ask the same questions. And what I would find is that a real thread would come through at every stage. So then you really knew what was going on. But also, or what I really learnt was that those people at the bottom in that were sort of lower down in the hierarchy could probably run the show. They knew more about the culture, the behaviors, the operations, the corporate memory, the goings on, the history, and they could see it from an outside perspective because they were at the lower hierarchy. They could see it like an outsider, almost like a helicopter effect. And sometimes I used to think they actually know the business and the nuances and the minutiae of it all. They knew it better than the CEO. They were the ones that should have been running the show because they were smart. They kind of knew what would work and what didn't. They were just not given the opportunity. And sometimes I wonder if they were at the bottom and kept down the bottom because they were too smart, but smart in a different way. Street smart, and not smart as in, university smart or university indoctrinated smart, but they just had an innate way of just knowing. So yeah, that and I really enjoyed doing that because they always thought I was, this, when they hear consultant, they have, preconceived ideas. But I would just, be very matter of fact with them. And, I'm just a girl next door. I'm, not here to, get you fired. I'm here to just find out and help you. I'm here to help you with the problems, solve them with you. And yeah. So
The amount of
yeah, it was interesting.
I was
Yes.
the image that comes to me as you're talking is like, as someone who works a lot in the hospitality industry, you get it a lot where the business owner, the CEO is just some rich guy who thought owning a restaurant was a good idea and doesn't really know or hasn't ever run a restaurant or hasn't ever worked in hospitality before. And the way that I kind of see it is the people down the bottom, the cleaners or the people actually serving, the waitresses, that all the it's like layers of filtration, and all the crap that still gets, you know that never gets filtered through always falls down onto the people who are the little guy, in a sense, in these kinds of businesses. Like, if something goes wrong, it's going through that filtration, and it always that and that and anomaly always falls on that server, that waitress, or the bins. There's an issue with the bins, and then the janitor has to deal with the problems. There's so many nuances that happen, and I really agree with what you're saying, because there's so many times where even just managers will be really, um, like really crappy or just not meant for whatever role they're in. But then a coworker of mine, I'm like, you would be perfect for that position. But I think sometimes these roles aren't meant for efficiency, or that it's not always the best person to put in a managerial role. Sometimes it's um for a lot of other reasons. It's like it can be very confusing, very frustrating. So it's really good to know that voices are heard in industries like yours, Emery, where there's people like you who do go to those people, because yeah, it's so true. That's where all the um secrets lie, is within is within
Yeah.
all the, yeah, I guess, the
And
bottom
they,
of the
they
pyramid.
yeah, and they see the culture as it is, not
Mm,
not, sugar coated. Um, and so then it was really good for me because it then I'm like the conduit between the people and the management, and just kind of going, well, this is where I see it. This is from all the feedback I'm getting. If I bring it all together, this is what I'm seeing, and it's consistent, and
mm,
this is what you need to do. So yeah, it was through conversation. It's the only way I could have done it. And I think that's why I got a lot of the projects, because I would do that. And that was the
Mm.
part I enjoyed anyway. And I type really fast. So as I'm doing it, I could like type and keep up, and actually quote um, things that were said, so that when I synthesized it, I could really, yeah, see the consistencies. And yeah, but
Yeah, so
conversations important.
sorry, Anne Marie, to interrupt
Yeah.
you, but what I'm interested to know through that line of thought is they needed you to come in and talk to people and have those conversations. In your opinion, why weren't the people at the top, why weren't the CEOs doing that? Like just
mm,
as a daily practice or a weekly practice? Why weren't these people at the
Yeah.
top having these meaningful conversations with the people below them? Because it's their company.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And it's funny because the more I think about that, the more I sometimes I think CEOs are quite introverted and they're not extroverted. And some, I mean, you get all types. That's just a generalization, but a lot of them, are very, charismatic, and they can talk to their people, and they can, excite them and bring them along. But the other managers and other CEOs, they struggle with having that dialogue with their people, I think. But also as an external, it was a lot easier for me to do that than someone that is internal. So if you're internal and you're trying to do that, people will not be honest with their manager about
Yes.
how their manager might
Yes.
suck. So,
Yes.
no one's going
So
to
there's an
really be honest.
emotional component. You're
Yeah.
saying there's an emotional component in there.
Yeah, and a third party who encourages them to open up, they will open up. But a manager where they consider there might be repercussions for opening up won't go there. So that is, I think, the power of having a neutral person come in, that's, external to the business and just observing.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I think there's something to be said for that when even in our personal lives, when we're talking to people, to come into um, conversations or connection with people, to have an open mind and to try and take a neutral, take the emotional aspect out of it and come in with a neutral mindset. so that when we're
Mm,
talking to people, there's a level of trust that's like built between the two parties. I think but like, I know with Juliet, if I'm emotionally charged in the conversation, it's harder for her to trust me, to tell me what's going on. It's
Yeah.
harder for, anyone who's emotionally invested in something to take a neutral stand. So it's
Yeah.
like the connection can be uh, explored more deeply if
mm,
both parties are coming at it from a neutral standpoint. Would
Yeah.
you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and I think without bias, when we come into conversations, um, sometimes we hold biases, sometimes we
Mm,
hold, we misunderstand. So we really have to talk it through. Um, I find like talking through, you know, those misunderstandings or what's happened in the past to get you to a certain point and saying, this has made me a little bit untrusting, or can you explain that to me a bit more, and explain, just telling them that where you've come from, or, where you position. So, you might be a bit untrusting because something's happened. You might be excited, so you might jump at something too soon. I
mm,
always believe that in any discussion, and at the end of the day, a lot of things are negotiations, and it's about us agreeing on something, or we're coming together to kind of negotiate. And so I used to actually lecture in the Harvard method of negotiating. And the one thing that I have always taken with me is that the honesty and
mm,
sharing, because usually in negotiations we are not honest and we don't share everything. But if we are both sharing what we want, what we need, and we're honest and we communicate that, then a
mm,
negotiation is more successful and we get what we
yeah,
want
right.
because we've said it. But many negotiations, people want to keep the card in their back pocket and don't reveal all their cards. But there is a downfall to that you don't get what you want. But if you're honest, someone will go, oh, well, I can't help you with that, but I can put you in touch with someone that will. So it's a win-win. Um, so yeah, it's a hard one when you think about everything's a negotiation, but really we
Mm,
operate in a world of commerce. And so really everything is offer and acceptance.
yeah, so true.
Um, and we don't always realize that that's the dynamic we operate in. And when you
Mm,
start seeing everything as offer and acceptance, um, you play a more active role in your life.
mm,
You are aware that if someone proposes something, it's just an offer. You don't have to accept.
yeah,
That's where you need to counter offer,
yeah.
and until you get what you want, or you walk away, and however you choose to do that, um, without contracting. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. I what I see and hear when you're saying that is in my own life, growing up as a woman, feeling like, you know, when you put it in those terms, the offer and acceptance terms, I've always felt that when someone offers something, I need to accept it because otherwise I'd be mean to them.
mm,
There's a pressure I feel on women to be nice
yeah,
and to, not reject the offer, because sometimes you don't see it as an offer, but it is. Like, you're
yeah,
absolutely correct. We live in a a world with the universal law of offer and acceptance, and everything, when you really
Yeah.
boil it down, is offer and acceptance. And so when somebody offers something, it's like, oh, it'd be really rude if I didn't accept. And or I'd be really rude if I didn't let them down gently, or I can't be rude. I have to kind of weasel my way out of it in a way, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And sometimes that's not clear, and
No.
it can create um more heartache because it's not clear.
Mm.
And if you're not, haven't got the strong boundaries, and saying no doesn't come naturally, the other person can
Mm.
think, oh, there's wiggle room, or, I can weasel my way in there. Or I can manipulate, if that person has that type of personality, that
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
hard no is not a no. And if you're not used to saying a hard no, then there's gray area. They think there's gray area. You think you've said no, and they think there's a
Yeah.
gray area.
Mm.
And that can get messy, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And it's messy. And don't you wish we learnt this at school?
Mm.
Yes.
I just sort of think I'm really only now figuring all this out, and I'm like, my
Me
life would have
too.
played out very differently had I
Yes.
seen everything as offer and acceptance. I would have played a more active role in everything I engaged in,
Yeah.
rather than really a passive passenger.
Yes,
Um,
because being that passive passenger opens you up to literally everything that comes
yeah.
across your table, kind of,
Mm.
so to speak.
Exactly. And not
Yeah,
always with good intention.
exactly.
And because you don't articulate and have that conversation, what's your intention? And see it as an offer and acceptance, and if you want to engage more, or whatever, that you have some sort of counter offer, and you negotiate and have these boundaries clear from the start. Entities, nefarious operators, they attach, and we're not really aware of,
Hmm.
um, in what would say, in the etherical realm, what's really going on and what we've agreed to.
Yeah. And
I
I
think
feel that, oh, sorry, Juliet, you go.
no, 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 you go. Yeah.
I was just going to say really quickly, and then you can say what you need to say, Jay. Um, but I think the more we become aware of our wants and dislikes, and the things that are right and wrong, and our boundaries, the
Yeah,
more we become clear on those things, I
yeah,
feel like the less those types of offers come to us, because it changes our vibration. So if
yeah,
we're walking around and we're very clear that certain things are not okay,
yeah,
there's less of those people that come into our lives trying to give us something that's not okay. That's what
yeah,
I feel. Yeah.
yeah. I think you're right, because
And there's less
we
to deal with then.
yeah. Yeah, it's because you're a bit more straight up. You're like, what do you
Yeah.
want to, and also along the way, the language changes. So it's more like a offer and acceptance language, and you're
Yeah.
really saying, what is it in this relationship that you're seeking? You know,
Yeah.
I can tell you that previous, relationships I've had in the past, never have I really gone, what do you want out of me? And what are you wanting for our future? And what are you expecting me to be in this partnership? Or what are you wanting to give me? And what are you expecting me to give you? I
Mm.
mean, have you ever had those conversations?
No,
Not really.
not in
No,
those terms. No.
no.
Mm.
And
And
I think that if you were to have that conversation, not many people would know what to say.
yeah. But this
Not
is
many
where
people
we
even
really,
know. Yeah, they
Yeah.
wouldn't even, they don't even know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But as women, I think it's really important for us because I was listening to a woman and she said that men seek other women because there's something they want from her.
Mm-hmm.
Have I cut out?
No.
No,
So they're, oh, okay. So, yeah, this woman said that men, when they're, searching for a woman, there is something that they want that you can give them.
Yeah.
So, what is that?
Yeah.
Be straight up with me. Tell me what that is.
I
Is
think
that
that's
the conversation we need to have with potential partners?
I think that's such a massive, massive issue that comes across, I think, in all generations, but I find that especially in my generation as well, with, I mean, there's so many things that muddle up communication and the offer and acceptance because it's over phones now a lot of the time and texting, and I see it so often, um this fear, this constant fear to be honest and straight up, and even just to say, actually, I like you and all I want is to explore this, connection, because sometimes that's what it is, but then other times, yeah, there is this, it depends on the kind of man that you know it is, but I feel like there's so many issues that crop up with me and guys I meet where there is this want that they, and I sense it, and I kind of intuitively have a feeling I know what their intention is, from the beginning, but there's this like really manipulative way that they go about trying to get what they want. And I mean, it's like, and this is not every guy. I'm not trying to demonize them or anything, but I've just noticed that there's this strong manipulative way of doing it. I've been manipulated so many times by guys. I mean, it doesn't work 99% of the time, but they try, and it's like, just be honest. Like, just talk.
Mm.
And it's, I mean, that's one aspect of this conversation. Like, that's with friends too. Um, I have it with my friends that I catch myself so often not speaking. Oh, actually, I have a bit of a issue, or oh, we organized to meet up on Wednesday, but I'm actually really not feeling like I want to do that anymore. But I'll, instead of having a conversation about that and communicating my feeling, it's like, oh no, I've committed now. I'm just gonna have to suck it up and go, or I'll, even though I know now that I don't want to go, I'm actually going to wait until Wednesday comes around and I'll just say that I'm sick. Like, this is the kind of behavior that, like, I know comes up within me, and I'm sure other people too.
Yeah.
But it's so funny how we can be so scared to just speak our needs to
Mm.
other people. It's like, all it has to be is actually, I know we've organized to meet up on Wednesday, but I'm genuinely not feeling like I'm going to be up for that. I've got a lot on my plate or whatever.
Yeah.
Can we change? Can we reorganize for a different day? And that's all it has to be. But yeah, that's such a scary thing. It's so
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah, being vulnerable is putting yourself out there. And if you're not met with equal vulnerability or understanding or, whatever it is that you need in that moment, then you're putting yourself at risk for getting hurt or being
Mm,
judged or, whatever it is that you're fearing. But if sometimes, because we've all been in that position. So we know what that feels like because everyone has been in a position where they've made plans and they think, oh, my past self thought I'd be up for it, but my present self is like, no, I'm not okay with that. And so the other person would know what that feels like, and to be, open and vulnerable with them and say, I just can't do it. There's, just too much going on. Can we reschedule? If they, have been in that position before, then surely there's a level of understanding that they can bring to the table for that
Mm,
situation, and so if we can be brave enough to be vulnerable and give the trust that that person is going to meet us where we're at, then that can create a deeper connection with that person, because you've been vulnerable and they've understood and met you with their own vulnerability. And then you go, wow, that's a person that I can really be friends with. Like I've made the right choice being in this relationship with them. You're giving them a
Yeah.
chance to step up and meet you where you're at. And if they don't, if they are just as in a position of overwhelm and they can't meet you where you're at, and they're doing that constantly, then okay, maybe this isn't the right um, relationship for me. Maybe this isn't the greatest friendship for me, because this person can't can't be vulnerable with me. They can't meet me where I'm
yeah,
at the moment. So maybe I should spend less time with that person. And that's the reality. Like, that's when you open yourself up to those types of vulnerabilities and honesty, you can see where people are meeting, where they can meet you. And then you can make better decisions for yourself,
yeah,
and
Yeah,
we don't think about that when we're trying to save the feelings, and we're trying to, like, oh, I don't want to upset that person, so I'm
yeah, you
just going
don't
to
want to
make
let
an
them
excuse.
down, so you give
Yeah.
a reason. But rather, shouldn't we, like you said, let's be honest, where I'm not feeling like going and I'm not going to present my best self.
Yeah.
And maybe they're feeling the same way. And sometimes what I feel is if I'm feeling a bit yucky about meeting up with someone, inevitably they're feeling the same because
Mm.
we're vibration.
Yeah.
And if we're honest and say, like you've suggested, we're not up for it, and having that discussion, where are you feeling at, like you're at, they may be feeling in the same space. And the
mm,
thing is that, like you said, if if there is resistance and that inertia within us, we need to listen to it, and that
Yeah.
might be an energetic repulsion to not come together but to repel. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. 100%.
I um one this is a bit of a shift, but it kind of just came to me about words and the hidden meaning and etymology in words, because I think this is a really big part of conversation. It's talking, it's language. Because
yeah,
and I think this kind of goes, I think you would know a lot about this because this is also how documents get presented to us, how information gets presented to us as a collective with um, the whole like consent by silence kind of thing. But then
yeah,
um there's also actual hidden words in other words that we say, like
yeah.
good morning, like morning, like sad.
Yeah.
Um, oh, like
Appreciate.
there's
Apparently
yeah,
I appreciate and hate.
yes,
There's a lot of them, and I agree. We have to be more careful about the words we speak, because even biblically, man was spoken and it was created. And so what we think we create, what we say we create, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the energy, the frequency, and the vibration and the reality that we are then creating through our words. So sometimes my kids tell me I speak too slow, but sometimes I think, hang on, maybe I actually need to speak even slower, and each word that comes out, I need to think about, because even like with the etymology and even Black's Law's dictionary is what lawyers will use in a courtroom, and the words have different definitions.
Yeah.
So, this is a trap. And sometimes I think that even the English language was built as some sort of occult trap. That's just my little, I'll park that over there. But sometimes our words are so, um, there are so many words that have double meanings.
Mm.
Think about the word soul. So when we're babies, our footprint is taken, the sole of our feet is taken and put on our birth certificate. And we think it's just the sole of our foot. But is it, there is, if you do a lot of research like I have into birth certificates, is a bond document for our soul. And we think that it's our foot, but actually what they're trying to capture is our soul and our spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So, or our soul. So, etymology is so powerful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, when we're in conversation, we do need to be really careful about our language and the words we speak, and,
Mm-hmm.
that we're speaking positively as well, because that is the reality we're creating. And, if we want to live in abundance, then we talk as if we already live there and we have the abundance. And so that's the reality we live in. If
Mm-hmm.
we buy into the tell lies vision, television,
And
um,
televise. I'm
yes,
televising, like tell a lie.
tell a lie.
Oh,
Yeah, tell a lie
oh,
vision, television. There's so many.
that's
And
so crazy.
yeah, even the
Yeah.
word understand means
Yeah,
to stand
under.
under. Um, yeah, yeah, really
I
powerful stuff.
I think the study of etymology is insane. Like, because
Well,
we
it actually,
pull,
sorry, can I
we,
just add this? That it actually casts spells. It
yeah,
casts
Yeah.
spells upon ourselves and each other, and we have
mm,
no idea. Yeah, sorry, just
yeah,
wanted to add that.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I fully agree because I mean, I think it's so interlaced, interconnected. I mean, we pull um I can't think off the top of my head, but there's so many words that we speak that we think, oh, this is just a sound that we've made for this word. But actually, no, that part of that word isn't just a random, you know, letters grouped together. No, that comes from the Greek word that comes from this and that. And it's so intricate, and every word has its own individual history. And we are speaking that through what we say. And I mean, the Bible says it in I think, what is it, like the first line of the Bible or something? It's like the word of, uh, talking about the word of God and all about the word of God. And I forgot the line, but it's like incredibly famous about the word of God and all this talk about that, that what is the word of God? And it's so powerful. I think our language it is the creation space. It's we come, where we move to is what we speak, is where we move to. And I think that's why it's so important that, yeah, as you said, Emery, that we keep positive when we speak our words. I see it so strongly. Um, I like in friends, in family, talking about like, oh, this is the problem with this country and blah 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 blah, and the way that they speak, or the way that they talk about things, or oh God, the weather, it's horrible. What a horrible day because of the weather. And it's very like negative speaking. And I observe it and I see that they actually are having a terrible day or a horrible day because they are speaking that, and that's what their perception is because of it, it's raining, or um, kind of giving their power away to the weather, or giving their power away to the government, saying, oh, this is what's wrong with this country, it is, you know, blah, 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 etc., etc., etc. And it it really does, I don't know, sometimes it scares me to see how people can be so caught up in the negativity and the
And
giving power.
where are those judgments coming from? Because really, like you're sitting with them in conversation and they're saying, what a horrible day, or that's what's wrong with this country. And when you look around your surroundings, what's happening in reality?
Yeah, they're
So there's nothing,
sitting at
there's no
home,
war inside their living
solid
room.
roof.
The rain is outside.
Yeah.
So really, where is this coming from? Is it coming from their surroundings, or is it coming from a repetition that they're constantly telling
Mm,
themselves, or is it coming from the television? The
yeah.
television is telling them, oh, we're going to have rain for 6 weeks, or we're going to, there, we've got a problem with immigration, or we've got a problem with the government. Where is this negativity coming from
Well,
Yeah.
in
I
your
think
mind, Juliet?
oh, sorry.
In
Jay,
my
in your
mind,
mind, where is the negativity coming from?
I think I think people feed off each other. I think there's this talk, and I'm not I'm not saying that the television doesn't, or the news or social media doesn't have a strong implication on this mindset. I'm not saying that, but it's it's us together being in unison, talking negatively. That's the real connection. Because and the reason I say that is because it can't be the television, because you have two channels that will say two different things. So you have positive channels that I've seen on TV, the positivity. I've seen on TV, the side where, um, think of where things get exposed, or there's positive um there's positive vibes on the TV, and then you flick the channel and it's death, destruction, oh, we're all gonna die. And why is everyone clinging to the negative? And I know there is aspects of, well, the way that they design the negative is to attach to us, and I know that um more there's deeper layers as you go. But at the end of the day, the reason why it's so profound is because then you turn off that TV and you go and you talk about it with your mates. Or same with social media in my generation, is we have this collective, especially as women, young women, well, women in general, but also young women, there's this heavy theme of low self-esteem, mental health issues. And you see these pictures of these girls, you know, in their bikinis, photoshopped, and somehow we as women feel the pressure to look like that, or shame that we don't look like that. But I think the only reason why there's shame is because we as a collective have decided that it's shameful for some reason. It's not social media itself. So I think that's where we have to focus on, is how we talk to one another and how we interact with one another, because we're the ones who run social media. We're the ones the news talks about most of the time anyway. So I think the core of it is us and how we interact with each other in our day-to-day moments of life.
Yeah. And so that
Uh, yeah,
stems
yeah,
from how we talk to ourselves,
Yeah.
because how we talk to
yeah,
ourselves is what we generate inside, which is what we bring into the conversation. So if
Yeah.
we have negative self-talk, and that self-talk comes from many, many, many places. So if you've got parents who were negative self-talkers, you'll learn how to negatively self-talk. And so there comes a point where you have to be self-aware enough to say, right, I'm tired of this negativity in my life. I'm going to change it. And the buck stops with you. So it's taking personal responsibility on how you speak to yourself, because I
Mm.
think that's the most, out of all of this today that we've talked about, I think the conversation we have with ourselves is the most important. Because if we're having negative conversations with ourselves, then we're going to bring that negativity
Yeah.
into our interactions with others. And
Yeah.
so if we can be responsible enough to talk to ourselves in a different way and more positively, and if that takes us to actually figure out where it's coming from and why we feel so negatively about ourselves, then that's the work.
Yeah.
That's our job. That's where we should be starting our journey, is with why we speak negatively to ourselves. I mean, we all do it to a certain extent, but some of us do it more than others, really.
yeah. And it is that negative self-talk that's the reality we're creating.
Yeah.
And that's why we really have to actively try to not engage in negative conversation. Or, I mean, sometimes we do need to have the negative conversation because sometimes that's the reality. But then flipping and going, all right, what can I do to change that? What can I do to
Yeah.
actively not
And feel
sit,
powerful.
yeah, to not sit in that space for too long, because it will
Mm.
bring the vibration
Yeah.
down. And,
Yeah.
as a collective, if we're all buying into the negative news, then that's what we're creating. And sometimes what I believe is that the news is intentionally telling us that there's going to be doom and gloom. They're intentionally telling us interest rates will go up and there's going to be famine and there's going to be, World War III. And we buy into it and we
Yeah.
Mm.
believe it and with
And then it
fear.
happens.
And then we are creating it for the networks, for the news, who we know are run by nefarious entities and people that are not, you know, pro humanity. So they are planting these seeds for us to fall for and believe, and then we
Yeah.
Yeah.
create, because we're the creators, and we create it. It whether it's positive or negative, we've created it.
Yeah.
So, that's where we really have to actively turn off that television, and not buy into it.
Mm.
Actually, the silver method is a tool that is used across the world. And the silver method has this technique that whenever you hear yourself have a negative self-talk moment, which can be really frequent at the start, you just go cancel, cancel. So if you kind of have a thought and then you go, oh, what, you sort of, sometimes you imagine, well, what would be the worst kind of thing that could happen, or you say something negative to yourself, whatever it is, and it's not positive and not helpful, then you just say cancel, cancel straight away in your mind to cancel it out, and then replace it with something that's positive.
Mm.
Yeah.
But it takes actively observing your own thoughts, your own responses, your own reactions to be
Yeah.
able to do that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think,
Um,
Self-awareness.
yeah, it's self-awareness. And
Yeah.
and like I said, there is a lot of negative stuff happening right now, and some of it feels like we have no power. Um, but I believe that we should do whatever we can to kind of counter it. So right now I am very aware about our constitution not having been replaced in 1973, was replaced with what is a constitution that's for a corporation. And it's not for people. It's a corporation, a constitution that's for a corporation, not for living men and women. So I have a big issue with
Oh my
that
God.
because, we are a constitution that's for a corporation does not give the people any power. We have no power, no authority, and no jurisdiction. But they can't do that. So what they've replaced is a constitution. But it actually, if you look at it closely, it has no power, no authority, no jurisdiction over us as living, because we are at a higher jurisdiction. So, but they're selling it to, making us believe that the corporation, which is our government, has power over us. But we are
Yeah.
living. We are living people. We are not corporations. So, our Constitution of 1900 and 1901 needs to be returned. It has been done behind our backs without our consent. And, that original Constitution, which is the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act of the UK 1900, is actually based on the Magna Carta from 1215, and neither of them have ever been revoked. So they've brought in this constitution. For over 50 years, we've been operating under a constitution that's for a corporation and not living people. So I'm like, this makes me really angry because my great grandfather and my grandfather, they were in the war. My grandfather was a light horseman. Um, and then my dad was a Holocaust survivor. So I know never to trust a government and put all faith in a government. So, I feel like I need to do something. So I've been working with two ex-senators, Len Harris and Rod Cullerton, and they are not a political. This is not a political party or anything, but Len personally has set up this petition. So it's called, you can go there and it's called thesilentmajority.au. And the petition sits inside of there. And basically he's going to the House of Commons in England with 100,000 petition signatures to get it debated and to return us to our proper constitution of 1900. So, I feel that if every one of us was to, when we feel that anger, when we feel that disappointment, that negative thought, to actually give it energy in a positive way and go, all right, that's the thing that bothers me the most. What is it that pisses me off the most? Then that's the thing I'm going to attach to. Because for every one of us, there'll be something else that annoys us, that really pisses us off. And if we all, rather than just sit back and go, someone will do it, we all just do our little part, moving out of the negative and make it something we put our energy in to fix it, then I think, we're moving in a positive direction.
Yeah.
I agree with you so much. And I think the lesson or the thing that anyone should take away from everything that you just said is that good news, people, because we are the ones who run the show here. And
Yeah.
it's actually good news because it's up to us, which means we get to decide. It's not the power isn't always in, um, I mean, I'm talking about energy and, the higher aspect of this argument. I understand that definitely the government makes decisions and stuff, but really it's in our hands here and we run the show. I think there's so many problems in Australia that have to be um, addressed, that actually first we just have to open up the conversation about connecting through conversation. Um,
Mm, mm.
like there's another thing to add to the list is I've recently learned of American spy bases that are around Australia that
Yeah,
um don't they are American government run. Like they have nothing to do with the Australian government, and they're on Aboriginal land, stolen
yeah,
Aboriginal land, and it's America. It's like the CIA that run these programs, and Australians are getting arrested, nearly dying, threatening. They actually legally, the American government and the guards that guard the base are legally allowed to kill Australians for purely just walking through their own land.
yeah.
And,
I
would just
yeah.
happen to stumble across, but they're legally allowed to kill Australians for that. It's like, what?
So
What?
I had a friend that broke into Pine Gap years ago,
Mm.
and she was arrested and went to jail.
Yes, I saw.
And she
Oh,
had to go to
okay.
court,
Wow.
and yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, there was a
I
bunch
heard
of
about that.
them. They wanted to know what was going on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's foreign land.
Yeah. It's just it's just crazy. There's so many things that, I mean, and I didn't even know that that this existed. I'd never heard about it. No one told me about that at school. Never came up in conversation in education.
No, well,
No,
it's not
Just
going
no.
to. They
no.
don't want that this is the thing, that there are certain things that are in the world, that are truths in the world, that we aren't, like the general public are not supposed to know about. But what's happening now is that more and more people are getting this information and figuring it out. Because, like what you're saying about the Constitution, there there was a second Constitution that was introduced in 1975, I think it was. Is that right,
Mm.
Anne-Marie?
Yeah,
That
it's 70.
overlaid
Yeah.
that overlaid the original Constitution. So the original Constitution, they weren't allowed to actually get rid of it. So because the Australian people they weren't party, nobody voted for this. It was
Yeah.
done in secret. So they
Yeah.
weren't allowed to actually get rid of the Constitution because the Australian public weren't part of the decision.
Mm.
So they overlaid it over the top of the original Constitution. And then they just started, because it was the Constitution for a corporation, they started using it as such, as a business. That was the way in which they were able to make the change, was to create a corporation to
That's
do
right.
this. And so they're operating through business law and
Exactly.
what is called, if you really study business law, it's admiralty. It's based on admiralty law, which comes from trade. And
Yeah.
trade law, which is the law that all business law is based on, happened because countries were trading through ships across the water. And so
Mm,
the admiralty law um, allows countries to trade with each other, which is how it became business law, or commerce law, if you want to put it that way. And so that's why when you think of the water, so on ships sailing through the water, that's why we have things like banks, like the bank of a river, because it's
mm.
related to water. We're
And
getting back to
currency.
etymology now. And
And
currency,
Oh,
currency.
I didn't even
yes,
think of
Currency.
that.
because of the current of a river and current of the ocean and things like that. It's all related to admiralty law,
Oh
and it's
my,
related to,
And birth
yes,
certificates,
yeah, birth, because it's a
we
birth.
are birthed as in it's a admiralty term, and also because when our mother breaks her water,
Yes.
um, we come out in water.
oh my God.
Yeah. So we're coming back now to the etymology of words and
Yeah,
how they were able to introduce this constitution in 1975
Oh my God.
without the Australian public knowing about it,
yeah.
because they turned our government into a corporation, which is a business.
And you
So
can
they could,
you sorry, I was just going to add there that you just have to look at our the names of our government. So we're no longer the Commonwealth of Australia. We are the Australian government, and that is registered on the as a corporation in Australia, but on the US stock exchange.
Mhm.
So even if you do a search of all the government departments, you will find them just doing an ASIC search. You'll see that they're all corporations. They all have ABNs. And sadly, the people that work for these corporations think they're working for a government department and think there's nothing nefarious about having an ABN that these government agencies have to pay GST on. No, if it's if it's a constitutional government, that's for
They're not
corporation.
operating, they're not
So,
operating as a constitutional government under
No,
the 1900
so,
constitution. They're
so,
operating under the 1975 constitution.
yeah.
so, as I understand it, the Australian government is actually just a business or a corporation called the Australian government.
Yes.
Yes, and our Prime Minister is actually the CEO.
Oh my
So
God.
they
Not
can,
the Prime
and
Minister of
all of this,
anything.
no, all of this is so they can operate under
How did they get away
admiralty
with
law
that?
Because we've all
in
That's
fallen
secret,
for it, haven't
in
we?
secret,
In
in secret,
secret.
but
because
but
everybody
but it's not
thinks,
though, because we're here talking about it. How is that even like legal? How is that not
because
like
people
a
don't
war against
understand it,
humanity?
Juliet. They don't understand it. People don't
Oh my
understand.
God.
And also, if they do know that we're operating as a corporation, they don't understand what that means. They don't understand fully how it impacts them on a personal level.
Well, yeah, because I knew that Australia was technically a corporation, but I didn't know that the Australian government was a corporation called the Australian government. I didn't
Yes.
know that's what that meant, and I didn't know that the Prime Minister was just the CEO of that corporation. How is a corporation allowed to run a country? That is insane.
It's not
They
just
run it,
Australia, it's every country in the world.
Oh my
yes.
God.
And they run it by like with police. The police are working for a corporation, so they're employees of the Australian government as a corporation. So when
So
they
where
go
does
out and issue fines, they are, which is, people are saying constantly, police are just money grabbing. They're just putting fines out. They're not actually fighting crime anymore. They're just fining the Australian people. And
mm,
that is why, because they work for a corporation that fundraises or revenue raises through fines. And
so
that's why the police are on the trains. That's why they're on the roads finding people,
because
because
it's
they're
all
revenue raising.
the train is under the Australian government is part of the Australian government. So
Yes.
then when you do get a fine, surely there's litigation and laws that allow us
When you
to
get a
not have to pay if it's a corporation, right?
when you get a fine, it's an offer to
Uh,
be to
there we
pay,
go. Back to
Offer and acceptance.
full
offer and
circle.
acceptance. So when
Yeah.
you
Okay.
receive a fine, we think, most Australians think, I did the wrong thing because I parked in a no parking zone or I was speeding. So I've been given a fine for that. But what that fine is an offer. They're offering you this fine to pay. When you pay it, it's an admission of guilt.
And under common law, there needs to be a victim and there needs to be,
It's a
the victim
victimless
suffers
crime.
loss. So when you get a parking fine, who's the victim? What's the loss?
It's
There
it's
is none.
basically it's a made up crime.
Yeah.
It's yeah, a victimless crime is a made up fiction.
And it's
The council puts the signs there where if you park there, there's no victim and there's no crime that has been committed. It's offer and acceptance. That is how it runs. It's an offer and acceptance. So when
yeah.
you are given a fine, they're offering to you to say, we're saying you're guilty of parking in a no parking space. When you pay it, you say, yes, I parked in a no parking space and this is my punishment. Here's my money. You're accepting it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you for
So
educating
when you pulled over by a police officer, I'm sorry, I think I'm being repeated here.
No, we can hear
I'm
you.
just going to hear sound. So when a police officer pulls you over, you're best to say, I reserve the right to remain silent, because that will keep you in common law. Once you hand over your license and everything and you tell them your name, you are then accepting the offer. You are then engaging in contract. You
And the
are,
first thing they'll say
yeah,
usually,
you're engaging. So you're
yeah,
best to say, I reserve the right to remain silent, and
hmm
it keeps you in common law.
and they'll
So,
ask you, do you understand
sorry, Claudia.
ABC? No, you're right. So they will ask you, do you understand ABC? And when you say yes, I understand, you are saying to them, I stand under your law. I stand under you, under the law that you represent, and I'm accepting your offer. So when they ask you if you understand, that is exactly what you're doing. You're saying, yes, I understand and I accept. Does that make sense?
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this has been a very
Yeah.
intriguing, interesting, enlightening conversation. We've already gone 10 minutes over, so that's the only reason
Yeah.
why I'm
I just
30
saying
wanted
this.
to
minutes
add
Otherwise,
though.
there that, oh, sorry,
no, no, no.
there's a
Go,
bit
go,
of a
go.
lag.
You go for it, Annemarie. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, I could see, Juliet, it's really frustrating to know that this is what's going on. And the sad thing is that, like, even myself, I've written a lot of letters just saying to cease and desist and stand down to different government bodies, and they are belligerent. They ignore it. I've called them out on what they're doing, but they're just, just ignoring it. So
Yeah.
this is um where we need more people to understand what's going on, to then choose, what annoys me the most and focus on that, and then move that to a positive and do whatever we can in our little, each one of us has something that gravitates to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah,
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on and talking about the power of language and conversation and everything. I've really enjoyed learning because I did know some of this stuff, but it was never presented to me in a way that I could grasp um and understand. But now I feel
yeah.
like I definitely do have a lot better of an understanding. So yeah, I'm so glad that we're making this episode and putting this information out. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Something that going back to the beginning, making it a full circle, there was something I forgot to mention, and that was, that when I was talking to those guys at the mines and the different utilities, I wasn't a miner. So I wasn't the expert in what they did. Um, I came with different eyes. Yes, I think like an engineer, but I came with a different, different perspectives. And it just
Mm,
reminded me of, so there were times where they'd tell me the problem and I'd actually help them solve it, but I wasn't the miner. I wasn't the specialist in mining. I just could see to me, the solution was really obvious, but they were clouded by what they'd tried before. Someone said you couldn't do it. There were certain rules. Um, and that's what stopped them from solving the problem. And it reminded me of on the weekend, I went to the Living Free Festival, and there was a guy there that talked about how he's converting plastic to petrol. And the, and so he's been talking to these different um, organizations about what he's, been experimenting and stuff like that. And they said, how come you've worked this out? And he said, well, I'm not an engineer. So he wasn't clouded by all the rules that engineering have. He just came in from a different perspective without having the shackles of sometimes the shackles of knowledge, but
Yes.
indoctrinated university knowledge, which tells you you have to think a certain way. And so that was how he could solve it, was because he wasn't the engineer. So I just
yeah,
thought that was really interesting. He talked, how he got his knowledge was from talking. It was from connecting through conversation, gaining knowledge he needed, and solving a huge environmental issue. Yeah, so I just wanted to chuck that in because it reminded me, it kind of back to the
yeah,
beginning.
Yes, that was
yeah,
beautifully put. Thank you,
yeah.
Anne-Marie.
And
It was like,
I
yeah,
fully agree.
awesome.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I mean, as someone who, um, I left school when I was 15 and now I'm traveling the world. I've learned so much in the past year from talking to people and from
Mm,
conversing with myself internally. Then, yeah, anyway, it's so funny because, I talk everyone always, when I meet someone new, it's the same question in the first 5 minutes. Oh, what are you studying? Where are you in uni? And I'm just like, no, I'm not in uni. This is my
I'm
school. I
studying
don't say it,
life.
The
but
study
this is
alive.
my life. Yeah. I do say that. I say, no, I'm just here living. Is this your gap year? And I say, no, this is my life, just traveling around. And I think that's not to say I'll be here forever. I'll be here doing this traveling forever. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. And there are things I do want to study in school, but I think if we all remained a little bit more open-minded and a little bit more unconventional in the way that we, live our lives, um, yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's just there's so much learning to be had, and building your mind from actual life experience, being out in the world, is the way that we create ideas like what you just mentioned with fuel out of plastic, and what the world really needs, the real medicine that
Mm.
we need here on on
Yeah.
Yes.
Earth.
I love
Yeah,
that, Juliet. The real medicine. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
get to decide what that is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
Wonderful.
I think I
Thank you.
feel complete. Do you guys
Mm.
Yeah.
feel complete? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, well,
Thank you,
thank
Anne
you.
Marie.
Thanks so
Yes.
much for having me. See, we found something to talk about.
We
Yeah.
always
I don't know how it
do.
happened. It just kind of happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week.
All right. And
Bye.
I'll in the post, I'll put the petition email web address if anyone's interested in signing it.
Okay.
Okay.
Definitely,
Okay.
yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Bye.